Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, the Trump administration rescinds its freeze on federal grants and loans, but did the administration have the authority to impose the freeze in the first place? Also tonight, Scottsdale officials say that two new state laws are an attack on the city's neighborhoods, and why artificial hearts can help regenerate heart muscle in some patients. Those stories and more next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Governor Katie Hobbs today appointed Appeals Court Judge Maria Elena Cruz to the Arizona Supreme Court. Cruz is the first Latina and first Black Arizonan to serve on the state's highest court, and as a Yuma resident, she's the only member of the court from a rural county. In naming Cruz, the governor noted Cruz's credentials, but added that she was looking for someone who, quote, reflects our state and a justice who will, quote, uplift those who need it most. This is the governor's first Supreme Court appointment and the first by a Democratic governor in 20 years. Other headlines: the White House today rescinded its directive freezing federal aid. Reversal comes less than 24 hours after the order took effect, which was followed by a federal judge stepping in and temporarily blocking the directive. Democratic members of Congress not amused.
Never in my time in the Senate have I seen a president cause so much chaos and panic and damage in such a short amount of time, as President Trump has caused with his brazen and illegal move to freeze federal grants across the government and across the country. The Trump administration, through a combination of sheer incompetence, cruel intentions, and a willful disregard of the law, caused real harm and chaos for millions over the span of just 48 hours.
Also today on Capitol Hill, Robert Kennedy Jr.'s nomination for Health and Human Services Director included many questions regarding Kennedy's many criticisms of vaccines.
The nominee wrote a book saying that people had been misled into believing that measles is a deadly disease. He's trying now to play down his role in Samoa. That's not what the parents say. That's not what Governor Green says. It's time to make sure that we blow the whistle on actually what your views are. At least we're starting.
We need to move
Senator,
on.
I support the measles vaccine. I support the polio vaccine. I will do nothing as HHS secretary that makes it difficult or discourages people from taking either of those
Anybody
vaccines.
who believes that ought to look at the measles book you wrote saying parents have been misled into believing that measles is a deadly disease. That's not true.
And Democrats on the committee had other concerns.
He has said he will protect his right to make money off the position of Secretary of HHS. That means that every decision he makes could be for the American people or could be just to benefit RFK Jr.
But these hearings are a job interview. Unlike many of these folks, I was a business guy for longer than I've been a politician. And, after that interview, there's no way I'd hire Mr. Kennedy to be Secretary of Health and Human Services.
But Senate Republicans saw things differently.
I feel like he's been very prepared, and I think that he has mirrored the behavior when appropriate on the Democrat side, trying to attack them. I think on the whole, he's actually done a very good job. There's a lot of pressure in that room. He's got another day to go through tomorrow in the Health Committee. I'm in a presumptive lean yes position, and everything he did today hasn't eroded that position.
Kennedy was also questioned over his shifting stance on abortion, which at this time consists of complete agreement with President Trump's policies. One more headline: the president signed the first bill of his second presidency. The Laken-Riley Act requires the detention of migrants who enter the country without authorization and are arrested or charged with certain crimes. The act is named for a 22-year-old Georgia nursing student who was murdered by an undocumented migrant from Venezuela who was previously arrested for shoplifting but had not been detained. As we mentioned, the White House today rescinded its directive freezing all federal grants and loans. The memo from the White House Budget Office caused much confusion and led to a court action putting the order on hold. It also raised questions as to executive power over spending already authorized by Congress. Joining us now is attorney Stephen Montoya, partner at Montoya, Lucero, and Pastor. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
What is an executive order? What is a directive? How much force of law do these things have?
A lot, as a practical matter. The president is the highest elected official in the national government. He has a lot of constitutional authority as commander-in-chief. He's head of the executive branch. No one wants to disagree with the president, especially this president. So an executive order does have something very close to the force of law. It cannot overrule decision by the Supreme Court of the United States. It's not supposed to conflict with an act of Congress. The problem is that the president has the right to his own opinion regarding the constitutionality of the laws passed by Congress, and can say, hey, listen, I don't think that law is constitutional. I don't have to follow it. And hence, we have the creation of constitutional crises.
Well, yeah, but that still means that you'll have court action to figure this thing out. It's not just I say this, X, Y, especially in this. These were statutes passed by Congress. This was money that was already allocated, money already taken from tax.
Correct.
This is supposed to go out, and now all of a sudden, what, you pull the plug?
It really does, in my opinion, clearly violate the separation of powers. Just as importantly, it violates a congressional statute passed in 1974 after Richard Nixon refused to spend all the money allocated by Congress on the Clean Water Act. He spent about half of it and said he didn't have to spend the rest. The city of New York sued him. It went all the way to the Supreme Court, where President Nixon lost 9-0 in an opinion authored by a conservative, Associate Justice White, joined by the liberals, Brennan and Marshall, and the conservative Rehnquist of Arizona.
And didn't something happen in the mid-'90s regarding line item vetoes?
Yes, but however, what happened in reference to the 90s and Bill Clinton was the Supreme Court considered the law and said it was unconstitutional. But that law did not violate the separation of powers. That violated the presentment clause.
So, bottom line, does the president have the power to basically block spending that Congress has authorized?
I do not believe that the president has that power, and I don't think that power is consistent with the structure of our government. Article 1, Section 1 of the Constitution, all legislative power is vested in Congress. Article 1, Section 6, the spending clause, Congress has the power to tax, it has the power to spend. The president doesn't have any of those powers. So it would really usurp congressional authority and turn our government on its head to give the president that power. And that conclusion is underscored by the fact that he does have one power. He has the veto power.
Right.
But if he doesn't exercise that power, or if he exercises it and that veto is overridden by Congress, he has to obey the law that Congress passes like everyone else does.
And the impoundment law, and so we're talking about impoundment law, is
correct.
Taken care of.
That's the word.
Yes. That could be reversed by a Congress, could it not?
It could. However, the Supreme Court of the United States in a 1975 case, the Train versus City of New York case, that wasn't a constitutional case. That was a statutory case. And the court looked at the Clean Water Act and said, hey, Congress didn't give the president the right to reduce the spending, so the president doesn't have that right. So the court really, in effect, concluded that inherent in passing laws meant that the president might have the power to veto the law, but if he did not veto it, or if his veto was overridden, he had to comply with the law.
What about the phrase, though, in the impoundment law, the president shall take care that the law be faithfully executed. What does that mean?
I think it means that the president has to execute the law that Congress passed unless he vetoes it, and his veto is not overridden. Faithfully executing the law. See, in this particular case, when you read the OMB directive,
yes,
it was essentially saying, hey, I don't agree with this law, so it's social engineering, Marxist equity,
the proponents say
transgenderism.
that's him faithfully executing the law.
Well, but see, the Congress has the right to decide policy. The power to legislate is the inherent power to decide policy. If policy thinks that Marxist equity and transgenderism and the Green New Deal are what we need to do, that's Congress's right. And the law that the president faithfully executes are the law that Congress passes.
Interesting. So it's not his opinion of whether or not it's faithfully executed. You faithfully execute it.
The way if you tell me, hey, this is my shopping list.
Yes.
Go buy my groceries.
Yes.
Oh, no, this is not a very healthy diet. I think I'm going to have to buy you more fruits and vegetables and get rid of the bread and the candy.
All right.
That's not faithfully executing your list.
I'm not happy about that, but I guess that's the law, isn't it?
That is the law, in my view. But I also think that's the Supreme Court's view. And I also think that the language of the Constitution mandates that.
Real quickly before you go, is that this Supreme Court's view?
I think that's this Supreme Court's view, too, because remember the Train versus New York City case. The conservatives and the liberals spoke in one voice in that case. And this is something that goes to the heart of the separation of powers. Now, the president does have the right to veto, which is a powerful right. But once he exercises that right, he has to go with the law that Congress passes.
Stephen Montoya, great conversation as always. Good to see you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Chef Mark Tarbell. Welcome to Check Please Arizona, the show where Arizona residents recommend their favorite restaurants. In this episode, we're checking out an earthy, plant-based cuisine, sophisticated, silky comfort food, and a coffee shop with a woody twist.
It felt very therapeutic inside.
It was absolutely incredible. Pro tip, Margaret.
Just go.
Just go. Boom. Drop the mic.
Thursday night at 7 on Arizona PBS.
Although Arizona's statehood only goes back a little over 100 years, Arizona history goes back as far as the land itself. Today, we'll be hiking and exploring 2 national monuments. In between, we'll dive even deeper into the past and learn about Arizona before humans ever existed.
Tuesday night at 7:30 on Arizona PBS.
2 new state laws restrict how cities can regulate housing and apartment complexes. The mandates are causing concern in Scottsdale, where some city officials see the new laws as an attack on the city's neighborhoods. For more on this, we welcome the mayor of Scottsdale, Lisa Borowski. Welcome to Arizona Horizon. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah, good
Glad
to have
be here.
These are preemption laws, and basically the folks, your opinion on these 2 laws, are you among those who say this is no good for us?
Absolutely. I think the state is meddling in what I think one of the big top priorities in local government is, and that is to protect homeowners, residents in our community. And by undermining our ability to engage in zoning and planning our cities, I think that it's gone way too far.
Let's talk about the Casita law, which cuts restrictions on what can be built on a certain property. What is the concern there?
Well, I mean, top priority, fire is on everybody's mind right now. It eliminates Scottsdale's ability to require fire sprinklers. I mean, in our fire code, fire sprinklers have been part of the code and the requirement for new builds, for decades, right? So that's one example of how, it just doesn't make any sense. It eliminates setbacks on property lines. They can be short-term rentals. It doesn't require additional parking. There are so many ways that it can be offensive to other members, over the fence, community members that are over the fence from.
And this means like a single-family home, you can put 2 other little homes on that property. Is that true?
Correct.
And if it's an acre or more, you get what? 3 homes can be put on. If I remember, we talked about this a while back, so I'm trying to remember what it is.
So your memory is probably as good as mine. You know, I've been in office 2 weeks, and this is a new law that just took effect this year, right? Earlier this year, and there's a requirement that it be not more than 1,000 square feet, the ADU, I believe, and I thought the maximum was 2, but
I think on an acre property you can get 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is obviously a lot of land. It's a lot of homes. People need homes. There is a housing shortage. Why is this a bad thing for Scottsdale?
Well, for all the reasons I've just said, people buy properties, invest a lot of money, you know, in every part of the county, but especially Scottsdale, right? You move to a community far north Scottsdale, for example, and you buy, you know, an acre property because you like a lot of land and peace and quiet and low lights and not a lot of traffic, and then your neighbor now has a subdivided lot, in essence, on their property, which is imposing upon your property value, and so it changes the entire landscape of a community.
You mentioned short-term rentals here. Is that a continuing problem in Scottsdale?
It is. It really is. So Scottsdale, you know, I know over the past couple of years, Scottsdale, the prior administration did enact an ordinance that required short-term rentals to be to register and get a TPT, you know, tax license, and assess charges and reporting obligations and a litany of, you know, questions that had to be answered for the city in order to get the license. So then you get into the enforcement issue. It's a small department. It's like a code enforcement, and it really is neighbor-driven to be the enforcement mechanism. And so if you have a party house next to you, you are the one that needs to be calling to report this to the city. Of course, the city, the people working in enforcement are not out policing the area. So it's still a big struggle in our community. And ideally, this, I think it was Governor Ducey that vetoed the ability or passed the legislation that limited or prohibited cities from engaging in enforcement of STRs. That was before VRBO, Airbnb, all these platforms that you could rent online. So it probably needs to be looked at to see how we can better regulate, for example, week minimum.
Interesting. Okay, before you go, though, I want to get to adaptive reuse law, and this is the idea that failed commercial centers and these sorts of things can be reused as apartment complexes. What's the concern there?
A lot of concerns are there. First of all, it deprives, again, the city from any zoning oversight. We have DRB, Development Review Board, and we take the quality of our projects very, very seriously. I can tell you, coming off a year on the campaign trail, not only does the city take it seriously, our residents take it very, very seriously. So allowing a dilapidated, I think that's actually the term they use, commercial building to now be turned into an apartment project, and I think they limit the use of multi-dwelling units to 10%, which makes no sense.
And again, these are things that the city would ordinarily and previously had some control over, and now what? You're just out there watching?
That's what the state legislature, these ordinance or statutes are telling us.
So how is Scottsdale, last question here, how have you responded? How has Scottsdale responded? What are you telling lawmakers? What are you telling residents?
We're talking to our representatives constantly. In fact, today, we had someone in the office talking to our state representatives, and they're not for the idea, right? Even though they're in the state house or state senate, they're not the ones approving these. It's really an interesting niche, if you will, of legislator that is promoting this idea. They're not from Scottsdale. So, and our representatives feel the same way as I do. And, they have been fighting for us. And then, of course, there's another piece of legislation, I think it's 2731, if I'm not mistaken, coming up through that was threatened, if you will, last legislative session, and that is the tiny house bill. So, and that's, the next big thing that we need to fight. And I'm really concerned about that. This could change the entire look and feel of our community.
Lisa Borowski, again, Scottsdale Mayor. First of all, congratulations on your election. And we'll be following this and seeing where it goes. I know a lot of cities have a lot of concerns, including Scottsdale. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. takes his turn in the hot seat, seeking confirmation to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. That's coming up at 6 on Arizona PBS.
The University of Arizona's Sarver Heart Center in Tucson has found that some patients with artificial hearts have experienced heart muscle regeneration at significantly higher rates than seen in healthy hearts. Dr. Hesham Sadek is the director of the U of A Tucson Sarver Heart Center, and he joins us now. Welcome to Arizona Horizon. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
Let's talk about this. So the idea is that your research focused on people with artificial hearts, and what did you find?
So my research focuses on making the heart muscle grow. So in humans, the heart muscle doesn't grow after birth. In utero, the muscle cells divide and it grows, but then after we're born, there's very slow rate of turnover, maybe 1% per year. And so if you have injury to the heart muscles, such as a heart attack, for example, that 1% per year is not enough to regenerate and regrow the heart muscle back to healthy function. So we're working now on trying to find ways to stimulate the heart muscle to heal itself, and by having the heart muscle cells divide. What we found was that artificial heart, which is supposed to replace the heart pump by rerouting the blood away from the heart, some patients who have it actually have up to 6-fold increase in cardiac muscle cell division.
Now, first of all, why is it so difficult for the heart to regenerate? Is it just because the doggone thing doesn't stop working? Is that really what's going on here?
Actually, you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly why. We think that because the heart, after birth, takes on a very strong function of pushing blood at a very high rate, at a very high pressure, 120 millimeter mercury in a normal heart, that makes the heart very energy hungry. So it builds up its machinery to consume oxygen, and it's the highest oxygen consuming organ in the body. It builds up this machinery, and as a result, essentially burns its DNA, causes oxidation. And when that happens, as a protective mechanism, the cell can't divide. And so when you rest the heart by putting an artificial pump, it essentially goes back to in utero condition.
That's what we're going back to with the artificial. You guys discovered that with an artificial heart, it lets the heart take a nap. It lets the heart regenerate. Is that what we're talking about here?
Exactly. We think this is what's happening.
How surprised was that something that was thought or considered previously? Was it a surprise?
So we had published a paper, I think maybe 8-9 years ago now, where we found some indices that heart muscle cells can divide in these patients. But what's new in this paper that was just published is that in collaboration with the Karolinska Institute in Sweden and University of Utah, we found that using the gold standard, which is essentially carbon dating, like what we do for dinosaurs, for example, we can carbon date the cells and determine the age. And that is really the gold standard. This proves without doubt that heart muscle cells do divide in some artificial heart patients.
What does this mean now for the treatment of heart failure?
So now it means that we can use the artificial heart not as a therapy as a bridge to transplant or as a destination therapy, as we call it, in someone who cannot get a transplant, but maybe as a means to regenerate the heart, and maybe we can remove it and the heart can be healthy after that. Now, that happens already in some patients, which is called bridge to recovery, but we have no idea why that happens or why some patients do that.
I was going to ask you, give me a percentage of patients where you actually see this regeneration?
So of the patients who get artificial hearts, about 25% of them can recover their function.
Is there any idea as to why it worked for them and maybe not for the others?
Absolutely not. This is the first evidence that this may be. So in this study, the patients who had increased turnover were the ones who recovered. So the ones that had artificial heart that did not recover did not have an increase in turnover. So this is the first indication that maybe this recovery is because the cells divide.
So what's next in the research?
So now we have to actually put in protocols that measures this. We can measure this in vivo without having to take a piece of the heart out using imaging techniques. And so we need to do this prospectively. So image the heart, try to monitor the increase in cardiac muscle mass, and determine which patients and when can we actually wean them off the pump.
You know, we do a lot, last question here, we do a lot of stories, health stories here, and there's always such breakthroughs. Some not so much, some a whole lot. Heart studies, seeing a lot of breakthroughs these days?
I would say in the past few years, yes. We've had several heart failure drugs for the first time in 30 years.
Wow.
And so I think research is pushing the envelope, and I'm very excited.
Dr. Hesham Sadek, again, U of A College of Medicine, the Sarver Heart Center. Thank you so much that's an encouraging story. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And that is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Hi, I'm Catherine Anaya, host of Horizonte. Have you signed up for the Arizona PBS Conexión e-newsletter? Visit azpbs.org/Conexión to subscribe to the monthly resource created to serve Arizona's vibrant Hispanic community. Conexión highlights Latino-focused Arizona PBS programming and features learning resources for kids, details on upcoming events, important headlines, and a brief column from yours truly.
We return to the shores of Botswana's Gomoti River. 3 very different cats have found all they need in one small world. A tapestry of habitats and large prey. But a flood is coming. Its arrival will bring great change and upend the lives of our big cats.
Tonight at 7 on Arizona PBS.